One courtroom moment was about to expose a level of privilege so shocking that viewers would never forget it. Before watching the full story, make sure you subscribe to the channel first. Also, comment below and tell us where you are watching this video from. And if you want more powerful courtroom stories like this, subscribe now, because what happens next is something you will not want to miss. The courtroom cameras captured a scene that would soon spread across the internet and completely change the way people talked about entitlement. Victoria Ashford Wellington stood in front of Judge Judy, covered in diamonds that were worth more than many people's homes. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent her entire life being treated as untouchable. Her perfectly polished finger pointed straight toward one of America's toughest judges. Then she spoke the words that would destroy her reputation forever. She told Judge Judy that she did not need a lecture from someone who was basically a servant of a television network. The courtroom went silent. It was not ordinary silence. It was the kind of silence that fills a room when everyone realizes something terrible has just been said. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, and the same stare that had made powerful people break down on national television locked directly onto Victoria. But what happened in the next 47 seconds would completely change Victoria's life. The woman who had entered the courtroom like a social queen would soon become one of the most disliked women in America, begging for mercy from the same judge she had just insulted. To understand how Victoria Ashford Wellington's world collapsed so dramatically, we have to go back to the moment she first entered the courtroom, believing nothing could touch her. At first, this looked like a normal Tuesday morning in Judge Judy's courtroom. Another small claims case, another quick dispute, another simple piece of television justice. The case seemed ordinary on paper. Victoria Ashford Wellington was suing Rosa Mendez, her former housekeeper, over a designer scarf that Victoria claimed had been stolen. The producers expected the case to last around 15 minutes. Nothing about it seemed special, but no one knew they were about to record one of the most unforgettable courtroom moments in daytime television history. Victoria Ashford Wellington was not simply rich. She represented old family wealth at its highest level. Her great-grandfather had built an oil fortune in the 1920s. Her grandfather had expanded that fortune into real estate. Her father had grown it even more through hedge funds and political connections. Victoria herself had never worked a single day in her 48 years of life. She never needed to. Her family trust produced more money in monthly interest than many Americans earned in an entire year. But wealth had not given Victoria kindness, class, or compassion. Instead, it had given her something dangerous, the belief that other people existed to serve her, and that consequences were only for ordinary people, not for someone with the Ashford Wellington name. That morning, Victoria arrived at the courthouse in a chauffeur-driven Mercedes S-Class. She wore a Chanel suit that cost more than Rose's monthly rent. Diamonds sparkled on her neck, wrists, and ears. Designer sunglasses rested on her head like a crown. She moved through the courthouse hallways as if she were royalty visiting a place beneath her. Her Louboutin heels struck the floor with the sound of entitlement. Court staff later described her behavior as shockingly rude. She snapped her fingers at a security guard and demanded that he move faster with the metal detector. She spoke to the receptionist without even looking away from her phone. She even tried to cut in front of other people waiting for courtroom assignments, saying loudly that she did not have time to stand in line with everyone else. For Victoria, this was normal behavior. This was how she treated people every day, and in her mind, it was not wrong. She believed it was exactly how someone of her status was supposed to act. On the other side of the courtroom sat Rosa Mendez, a 42-year-old single mother of 3, Rosa represented everything Victoria looked down on. Rosa had come to America 15 years earlier with very little besides hope and determination. She worked as a cleaner, a restaurant server, a hotel maid, and anything else that allowed her to support her children. 5 years earlier, she had accepted a full-time housekeeping job with Victoria. At the time, Rosa believed the steady income and benefits would finally bring stability to her family. But those 5 years became a long lesson in humiliation. Victoria did not treat Rosa like an employee. She treated her like property. She watched her through cameras. She called her at unreasonable hours over small demands. She criticized Rosa's accent, her clothes, and even the way she arranged flowers. Rosa endured all of it because she needed the job. Her children needed health care. As a single mother without a college degree, she did not have the luxury of walking away from a steady paycheck. But everything changed after the Christmas party incident. Victoria accused Rosa of theft in front of 50 guests. The humiliation was so painful that Rosa's youngest daughter cried herself to sleep that night, asking why that woman hated her mother so much. That was the moment Rosa finally found the courage to quit. And once Rosa quit, Victoria decided to punish her, in Victoria's mind. This was a lesson. She wanted Rosa to understand what happened when the help forgot their place. But there was one thing Victoria did not know. Judge Judy had spent the previous night doing something she only did for certain cases. She had researched deeply. She had checked backgrounds. She had contacted former employees. And what she discovered was far bigger than a simple dispute over a scarf. Judge Judy had found a pattern. It was not just about one housekeeper. It was not just about one accusation. It was about workplace abuse, repeated threats, and privilege being used as a weapon against people who had less power. Victoria believed she was walking into court to punish a former housekeeper. She had no idea she was about to face one person who did not care about her family name, her bank account, her designer clothes, or her social connections. Judge Judy was ready. And Victoria Ashford Wellington's 48 years of never being told no were about to end in the most public and humiliating way possible. To fully understand how explosive this courtroom battle was about to become, it is important to understand exactly who Victoria Ashford Wellington and Rosa Mendez really were. Victoria had been born into a lifestyle most people only ever see in movies. Her family's Connecticut mansion featured 14 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and a staff large enough to run a luxury hotel. She attended elite private schools where annual tuition cost more than many new cars. Her 16th birthday celebration was featured in society magazines, and she spent her summers in the Hamptons and winters in Aspen. From the very beginning, Victoria lived in a world where almost every obstacle could be removed with enough money and influence. And that created a dangerous problem. She never experienced genuine consequences. When she struggled in school, family donations seemed to solve the problem. When she was caught shoplifting as a teenager, lawyers handled the situation quietly. When she wrecked several vehicles before reaching adulthood, connections and money made the consequences disappear. As the years passed, Victoria became skilled at using wealth not as a privilege but as a weapon. By the age of 48, she viewed almost everyone around her as inferior. Her reputation among employees was infamous. During a 10-year period, she went through 47 different housekeepers. 47. That averaged out to a new housekeeper every 2.5 months. Former workers who later spoke about their experiences described behavior that was deeply troubling. Victoria would intentionally hide valuable items and later accuse employees of stealing them. She would create messes on purpose simply to test whether staff members cleaned them correctly. Cameras were reportedly installed throughout much of the property under the excuse of security. One former chef even claimed Victoria required her to taste every meal before it was served because she was convinced employees might try to poison her. The mistreatment did not stop inside her home. Restaurant employees dreaded serving her. Several workers reportedly lost their jobs after Victoria filed aggressive complaints over minor issues. Retail workers often offered discounts simply to avoid confrontations. Neighbors dealt with constant complaints whenever children played outside and made noise. This was not occasional bad behavior. It was a pattern that stretched across years. Victoria repeatedly used privilege, influence, and intimidation to punish anyone she believed had stepped out of line. Meanwhile, Rosa Mendez represented the exact opposite. Her journey to America had been motivated by love for her children. Back in Mexico, opportunities were limited and the future seemed uncertain. Rosa made the painful decision to leave her children temporarily with their grandmother while she traveled to America in search of a better life. Those early years were extremely difficult. She worked 3 jobs at the same time. At night, she cleaned office buildings. Early in the morning, she served breakfast at a diner. During the afternoon, she completed laundry work for extra income. Most nights, she slept only a few hours. Every spare dollar was sent home. After years of sacrifice, Rosa finally saved enough money to bring her children to America. When she received the housekeeping position with Victoria, she believed her struggles were finally ending. The pay was better than anything she had earned before. There were benefits. There were regular hours. For the first time, stability seemed possible. Instead, she entered 5 years of emotional hardship. Every day tested her patience and dignity, yet she endured because her children depended on her. Back in the courtroom, the atmosphere was becoming increasingly tense. The doors opened fully, and Victoria made her entrance as though she were attending an exclusive red carpet event. Her expensive heels echoed throughout the room. She did not simply walk to the plaintiff's table. She moved with deliberate confidence, her chin raised high, barely acknowledging the people around her. Across from her sat Rosa. Her posture was calm and respectful. She wore her best dress, carefully chosen despite her limited budget. There were no luxury brands, no expensive jewelry, and no attempts to impress anyone. Yet there was something Victoria lacked: dignity. Judge Judy entered the courtroom and immediately brought the proceedings to order. The case officially began. Miss Ashford Wellington, Judge Judy said, "You are suing Ms. Mendez for $5,000, claiming she stole a designer scarf from your home. Tell me what happened." Victoria immediately launched into her story. She spoke dramatically, clearly expecting sympathy. "Your Honor, this woman worked in my home for 5 years. I trusted her with my belongings, my valuables, and personal possessions. Then she betrayed that trust by stealing a limited edition Hermes scarf worth $5,000. She paused as if expecting a strong reaction. Judge Judy simply stared back. "Continue." Victoria resumed. "These people come into our homes. We treat them generously. We provide opportunities they would never have otherwise. And then they repay us like this." Several audience members shifted uncomfortably. Judge Judy raised one eyebrow. "These people," Victoria failed to recognize the warning. "You know exactly what I mean," she replied. "Service workers. The help. People in those positions often fail to understand proper boundaries." The courtroom grew noticeably colder. Judge Judy turned toward Rosa. "Ms. Mendez, tell me your version of events." Rosa took a deep breath. Her voice shook slightly at first, but she quickly found her confidence. "Your Honor, I worked for Mrs. Ashford Wellington for 5 years. I cared for her home every day. I treated her property with respect." She paused briefly. "The scarf she mentioned was something I asked permission to borrow. I had a job interview and needed something professional to wear. Mrs. Ashford Wellington told me I could borrow it." "That's a lie." Victoria interrupted immediately. Judge Judy raised her hand. "You will not interrupt in my courtroom." Victoria's face tightened with frustration. For perhaps the first time that day, someone had told her to be quiet, Rosa continued. "I borrowed the scarf and returned it the following day. It was clean and folded exactly as I received it. 2 weeks later, after I submitted my notice and resigned from my job, Mrs. Ashford Wellington reported it stolen." Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. "And why did you resign?" Tears appeared in Rosa's eyes, but her voice remained steady. "Because I could not allow my children to keep watching their mother be treated like she was worthless." The room fell silent. Judge Judy carefully studied both women. Anyone familiar with her courtroom knew exactly what that look meant. She was already seeing a much larger story. And Victoria was unknowingly digging herself deeper with every word she spoke. Judge Judy sat quietly for a moment, studying both women. Years of experience had taught her how to recognize truth, manipulation, fear, and arrogance. As she looked from Rosa Mendez to Victoria Ashford Wellington, it became increasingly clear which side understood humility and which side had spent a lifetime avoiding accountability. "Miss Ashford Wellington," Judge Judy said calmly, "let's discuss your working relationship with Miss Mendez. How would you describe the way you treated her during her employment?" Victoria straightened in her seat. She clearly believed this question worked in her favor. "I treated her exactly the way a professional employer should treat an employee. I was fair. I paid well. I expected quality work because I compensated her generously." Judge Judy nodded slightly. "You expected quality work." "Of course," Victoria replied confidently. "I maintain a high-standard household." Judge Judy opened a folder in front of her. "Tell me about these standards." Victoria smiled. "Simple expectations, punctuality, professionalism, respect for my property, respect for my privacy, attention to detail, nothing unreasonable." Judge Judy lifted a document. "Did you contact Miss Mendez at 2 o'clock in the morning and ask her to pick up dry cleaning?" The confidence on Victoria's face flickered. "Well, perhaps once or twice during emergencies. At 2 in the morning, when you employ someone full-time, they need to be available when required." The audience exchanged looks. Judge Judy remained expressionless. "Dry cleaning qualifies as an emergency." Victoria sighed dramatically. "With respect, Your Honor, maintaining a household of my caliber requires constant attention. People outside that lifestyle may not fully understand." Several people in the audience visibly reacted. Victoria interpreted none of it as criticism. She continued speaking as if she were educating everyone else. Judge Judy turned back to the central issue. "Let's return to the scarf. Ms. Mendez says she asked permission to borrow it. She says you agreed." For the first time, Victoria hesitated. Then something colder emerged beneath her polished exterior. "Yes." The courtroom grew quiet. "Yes," Judge Judy repeated. "Yes," she asked. "And yes, I initially allowed her to borrow it." Rosa looked stunned. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Then why are we here?" Victoria folded her arms. "Because circumstances changed." "What circumstances?" Victoria answered without realizing the damage she was doing. "She quit." The silence returned. "She quit." Judge Judy repeated, "Yes. She resigned without considering the inconvenience it would cause me. She abandoned her responsibilities. I felt there should be consequences." The audience collectively froze. Even Rosa stared at her former employer in disbelief. Judge Judy's voice became very careful. "So let me understand this correctly. You gave her permission to borrow the scarf. She returned it. Then she resigned. After that, you accused her of stealing it." Victoria nodded. "Exact, Judge." Judy blinked slowly. "You changed your mind after the scarf had already been returned." "Yes? Why?" Victoria's answer shocked the entire room. "Because people need to learn loyalty." The courtroom fell completely silent. Judge Judy folded her hands. People? Victoria nodded. Yes. Employees. Service workers. Staff members. If they think they can simply quit whenever they want, they stop respecting authority. The audience reacted immediately. Whispers spread through the room. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed slightly. Authority? Victoria continued speaking. People like me invest time and resources into employees. There needs to be mutual loyalty. People like you? Judge Judy asked. Victoria smiled. My family has been part of Connecticut society for generations. We employ people, we support local organizations, we contribute to the community. Judge Judy remained completely still, and therefore Victoria shrugged. Therefore, certain standards should be expected. Expected from whom? People who work for us. Judge Judy's voice became noticeably colder. Do you believe Miss Mendez owed you more respect than you owed her? Victoria answered immediately. Yes. Several audience members gasped. Judge Judy stared at her. Explain. It's the natural structure of society, Victoria replied. Employers occupy a different position than employees. There is a hierarchy. A hierarchy. Exactly. Judge Judy nodded slowly. In your view, Miss Mendez was beneath you. Victoria didn't hesitate. Professionally speaking, yes. The room seemed to stop breathing. Judge Judy's expression remained controlled, but something dangerous had entered her eyes. And that seems perfectly reasonable to you. Of course, Victoria answered. Some people serve. Some people are served. That's simply how society functions. The words hung in the air, toxic heavy, impossible to ignore. Judge Judy's voice dropped lower. The audience immediately recognized the tone. Someone was about to make a catastrophic mistake. Miss Ashford Wellington, Judge Judy said quietly. What exactly do you think I do for a living? Victoria blinked. The question seemed to confuse her. You're a judge. Anything else? You work on television. That's correct. Judge Judy leaned forward. The television network pays me to perform a job. Correct? Yes. So would that make me a servant? Victoria laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was dismissive. Condescending sound, the sound echoed through the silent courtroom. Your Honor, let's be realistic. Judge Judy said nothing. Victoria continued. You're paid by a television company. Rosa was paid by me. Both of you perform services for someone else. The room became still, dangerously still. Victoria rolled her eyes. Then she delivered the sentence that would change everything. Honestly, I don't need a lecture from someone who is basically a servant to a television network. You're no different from her. Can we move on so I can get back to my actual life? Silence, silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The audience stared. The camera operators froze. Even Rosa looked shocked. The atmosphere inside the courtroom transformed instantly. It felt less like a courtroom and more like the moment before a massive storm breaks. Judge Judy slowly lowered her hands. Then she stood up. The movement was calm, measured, controlled, which somehow made it even more terrifying. Every person in the room knew they were witnessing a moment that would never be forgotten. A servant, Judge Judy repeated. Her voice carried across the courtroom. You just called me a servant. For the first time all day, Victoria's confidence cracked, only slightly, but it cracked. I didn't mean. Be quiet. The two words cut through the room like a blade. Victoria immediately stopped talking. Judge Judy reached for a thick folder resting beside her. Page after page appeared. Documents, statements, records, evidence. Victoria's face slowly lost color. Judge Judy placed the stack onto her desk. Then she looked directly at Victoria. Mrs. Ashford Wellington, since you seem interested in explaining where everyone belongs, allow me to explain something to you. Her voice became colder. During my career, I have spent decades serving justice. She tapped the folder. You, on the other hand, have spent 48 years serving only yourself. The audience leaned forward. No one wanted to miss a single word. And what Judge Judy was about to reveal would completely destroy everything Victoria believed protected her. The entire courtroom sat frozen as Judge Judy opened the thick folder resting in front of her. For the first time since entering the courtroom, Victoria Ashford Wellington looked genuinely nervous. The confidence that had carried her through the entire hearing was beginning to disappear. Judge Judy lifted the first document. Let's start with the designer scarf that brought us here today. Victoria swallowed. Judge Judy continued. You claim this scarf is worth $5,000. That's correct, Victoria replied. Judge Judy shook her head. No, it isn't. The room became silent. I had this item examined by 3 independent authentication specialists. According to all 3 reports, this scarf is counterfeit. Victoria's eyes widened. Judge Judy held up the paperwork. The estimated value is approximately $200. A wave of whispers spread throughout the courtroom. Victoria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Judge Judy continued. So not only are you accusing an innocent woman of theft, but you also exaggerated the value of the item by nearly 25 times. Victoria tried to speak. Your Honor, there must be some mistake. There is no mistake. Judge Judy immediately cut her off. And that's only the beginning. She reached for another document. I rarely spend this much time researching a case before it reaches my courtroom. Victoria's face grew paler. But something about this situation concerned me. Judge Judy looked directly at her, so I started asking questions. The audience listened carefully. What I discovered was a pattern. She lifted another page. Over the past 8 years, you have filed 13 separate legal complaints against former household employees. The courtroom gasped. 13? Judge Judy nodded. 13. She continued reading. Every single complaint was filed shortly after an employee resigned. Another page. Every complaint involved accusations of theft. Another page. Every complaint was either dismissed or settled because you failed to provide evidence. The audience could hardly believe what they were hearing. Judge Judy slowly lowered the papers. This case isn't about a scarf. Her voice was sharp. This is about retaliation. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. Judge Judy continued, you are not here because you lost a valuable possession. She pointed directly toward Rosa. You are here because Miss Mendez refused to tolerate your behavior and chose to leave. The room remained completely silent. Judge Judy picked up another document. This one is especially interesting. Victoria visibly flinched. Judge Judy glanced at the paper. These are text messages sent between you and one of your close friends 2 days after Ms. Mendez resigned. The audience leaned forward. Judge Judy began reading. That ungrateful woman quit without warning. She looked up briefly, then continued. I'm going to sue her over that scarf and make sure she never works in Greenwich again. A loud gasp spread across the courtroom. Rosa covered her mouth. Judge Judy wasn't finished. She continued reading. People like her need to learn loyalty. The audience reacted immediately. The evidence was devastating. Victoria's entire case was collapsing. Judge Judy carefully placed the document down. This was never about recovering property. Her voice became icy. This was about revenge. Victoria's hands trembled. Your Honor, those messages were private. They are now evidence. The response came instantly. Judge Judy reached for another file. The expression on her face became even more serious. And now we arrive at something far more concerning. Victoria looked terrified. Judge Judy opened the final section of the folder. For the last 6 years, federal authorities have been reviewing allegations regarding improper payroll reporting for household employees. The courtroom erupted with murmurs. Victoria's face turned completely white. Judge Judy continued, "You have allegedly failed to report significant employment income correctly." Another page. "You allegedly denied workers proper payroll protections." Another page. "And you allegedly benefited financially from doing so." Victoria looked like she could barely breathe. Judge Judy's voice remained calm. "Mrs. Ashford Wellington, these allegations go far beyond workplace misconduct." She paused. "These allegations carry potential criminal consequences." The room became absolutely silent. Every ounce of arrogance that Victoria had displayed earlier was gone. Judge Judy leaned forward. "You called me a servant." Victoria lowered her eyes. Judge Judy continued, "Let me explain the difference between us." Her voice was firm. "I serve justice." A pause. "I serve the law." Another pause. "I serve truth." Then she pointed directly at Victoria. "You serve only your own entitlement." The words hit harder than any legal ruling. Victoria visibly shook. Judge Judy looked toward Rosa, then back toward Victoria. "The evidence before me is overwhelming." She reached for her gavel. The entire courtroom waited. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The decision everyone had been anticipating was finally about to arrive. Victoria stared at the desk in complete panic. Rosa sat quietly, holding back tears. Judge Judy raised the gavel, and the most important ruling of the day was only seconds away. The courtroom remained completely silent as Judge Judy held the gavel in her hand. Every person in the room knew the moment had arrived. Victoria Ashford Wellington sat frozen, her confidence shattered. Rosa Mendez sat quietly across from her, waiting for a decision that would finally determine whether justice existed for people like her. Judge Judy looked directly at Victoria. Then she delivered her ruling. Judgment for the defendant. The words landed with tremendous force. Victoria immediately stiffened. Judge Judy continued, "You will recover nothing." The courtroom remained silent, but Judge Judy was not finished. Based on the evidence presented, the malicious nature of this lawsuit, the emotional distress inflicted upon Ms. Mendez, and your clear abuse of the legal process, I am awarding punitive damages. Victoria's eyes widened. Judge Judy continued. Ms. Mendez is awarded $15,000. The room erupted with shocked reactions. Victoria immediately stood up. "What?" Her voice cracked. "That's impossible." Judge Judy ignored the interruption. "The evidence demonstrates that this case was filed not to seek justice, but to punish a former employee for leaving your employment." Victoria shook her head violently. No, that's not fair." Judge Judy stared at her. "Fair?" The word carried unmistakable weight. For 5 years, Ms. Mendez tolerated humiliation, intimidation, and abuse. She pointed toward Rosa. "She earned every dollar of this judgment." Victoria's breathing became uneven. Her carefully controlled appearance was beginning to fall apart. "You don't understand," she said desperately. "You don't understand who I am." Judge Judy responded immediately. "I understand exactly who you are." The courtroom became silent again. "You are someone who believed money placed you above accountability." Victoria looked completely stunned. "You believed wealth entitled you to control people." Another pause. "You believed consequences were for everyone except yourself." The words hit harder than anything else said that day. Victoria's designer handbag slipped from her lap and crashed onto the floor, its contents scattered everywhere. Credit cards, receipts, luxury store purchases, personal items. The image perfectly symbolized what was happening. Her carefully constructed image was falling apart in front of everyone. "This is ridiculous," Victoria shouted. Her composure had completely disappeared. "I came here expecting justice." Judge Judy's expression never changed. "You received justice." Victoria pointed toward Rosa. "She lied. She manipulated everyone." "No," Judge Judy replied calmly. She simply told the truth. The audience erupted into murmurs again. Judge Judy then reached for one final document, and the room immediately became quiet. "Mrs. Ashford Wellington," she said, "there is one more matter." Victoria looked terrified. Judge Judy continued, "Based upon the information reviewed during this proceeding, I am forwarding evidence regarding your labor practices and payroll reporting issues to the appropriate authorities for further investigation." The courtroom gasped. Victoria's face lost all color. No. The word escaped her lips almost as a whisper. "No, please." For the first time all day, genuine fear appeared in her eyes. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. Her social status could not protect her. Her family name could not protect her. Her wealth could not protect her. Nothing could protect her. The tears began slowly, then they came all at once. Dark streaks of makeup ran down her cheeks as she broke down completely. The same woman who had entered the courtroom acting like royalty was now sobbing openly. "Please, Your Honor." Her voice shook uncontrollably. "I'm sorry." Judge Judy watched silently. "I didn't mean what I said." Victoria wiped tears from her face. "I was angry." She looked toward Rosa. "I'll apologize." She looked back toward Judge Judy. "I'll fix everything." The desperation in her voice filled the courtroom, but Judge Judy remained unmoved. "Now you're sorry." Her voice was calm. "Now you understand respect." Victoria lowered her head. Judge Judy continued, "Where was that respect when you described workers as people beneath you?" Silence. "Where was that respect when you attempted to ruin Ms. Mendez' life?" Silence. "Where was that respect when you called me a servant?" Victoria could not answer. Judge Judy leaned forward one final time. "Mrs. Ashford Wellington, today you learned a lesson many people learn far earlier in life. The room listened carefully. When you abuse power, eventually you encounter someone who cannot be intimidated." A pause. "When you treat people as less than human, eventually you face consequences." Another pause. "And when you use wealth as a weapon, eventually someone takes that weapon away." The courtroom was completely silent. Judge Judy raised the gavel one final time. "The judgment stands." A sharp crack echoed through the room. Ms. Mendez is awarded $15,000 in punitive damages. Another pause. "You will also pay $8,000 in legal costs." The audience reacted immediately. Total judgment, $23,000. Judge Judy finished. "You are further ordered to cease all contact with Miss Mendez and her family." The ruling was final. Victoria collapsed back into her chair. Her entire body shook as she cried. Across the courtroom, Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but these were different tears, not tears of fear, not tears of humiliation, tears of relief. For the first time in years, someone had listened, someone had believed her, someone had stood up for her. Judge Judy looked toward Rosa. Her expression softened slightly. "Miss Mendez, throughout this entire case, you conducted yourself with dignity." Rosa nodded through tears. "You endured more than anyone should have endured." Judge Judy continued, "Take care of your children, build your future, and never allow anyone to convince you that your worth depends on your job title." The courtroom erupted into applause. Audience members stood. Court staff applauded. Even some members of the production crew joined in. Meanwhile, Victoria was escorted from the courtroom. The woman who had arrived believing she was untouchable left completely broken. But the story did not end there. After the episode aired, the clip spread rapidly across social media. Millions of viewers watched the moment Victoria called Judge Judy a servant. Millions more watched the devastating response that followed. News outlets covered the story. Illegal analysts discussed it. Commentators debated it. The clip became one of the most talked about courtroom moments of the year. The consequences continued. Organizations distanced themselves from Victoria, investigations intensified. Former employees came forward with similar experiences. Additional legal challenges followed. Meanwhile, Rosa's life moved in the opposite direction. The financial award helped her support her family. She pursued additional education. She built a better future for her children. Most importantly, she regained something money could never buy: her confidence. Months later, when asked whether she still hated Victoria, Rosa gave an answer that surprised everyone: "I forgive her." The audience listening to the interview was stunned. Rosa smiled gently. "I just hope she learns to treat people better." That simple response revealed the true difference between the two women. One possessed wealth, the other possessed character. And in the end, character proved far more valuable. The lesson from Victoria Ashford Wellington's downfall was simple. Money can purchase luxury. It can purchase influence. It can purchase comfort. But it cannot purchase respect. Respect must be earned. Judge Judy delivered more than a ruling that day. She delivered a reminder. No matter how powerful someone becomes, no matter how much money they possess, and no matter how important they believe they are, everyone is accountable for how they treat others, because in the end, true status is not measured by wealth. It is measured by character. Justice was served, case closed.